James fires a three. Bang! Flicks it outside of Kobe. Takes it to midcourt. Kobe. Bryant for the win. Bang!
Welcome back to the Double Trouble Podcast. Hey, I'm actually recording not like a month after the last one. I'm actually like having a decent schedule on it. But that's because the NFL draft just came. There's the race to the play-in tournament in the NBA world. A lot of things going on. So it makes for a lot of good content for this podcast. Like I said in the last episode, I don't want to record a podcast for the sake of recording a podcast. I want to record if there's actually a lot to talk about. And I feel like in this episode, there is a lot to talk about. This will mainly be an NFL episode, considering the draft just happened. But there's still a lot to talk about for me and the NBA. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, in the NBA, we've got the race to the play-in tournament. That's actually the first thing I want to talk about. There's been a lot of discussion about whether the play-in tournament was a good idea or not. You have LeBron James saying that whoever came up with the idea of the play-in tournament needs to be fired. And then, a lot of people go on the tirade, they go agree with LeBron. Because, LeBron James, one of the best players in the NBA, he says something, people are going to agree with that. And that's what has been happening. But I feel like you only hate the play-in tournament as a player if you're close to it. Like, the Lakers are the 6th seed right now, tied with the Blazers for 7. If they lose another game, they're about to be in the play-in tournament. You'd only hate the idea of the play-in tournament if you're in it. Chris Paul right now and the Suns chilling like the 1 seed, they don't care because they're not in it. And I think if you're in the play-in tournament, it's nobody's fault but yourselves. Yes, the Lakers have been injured the whole season, but Anthony Davis just came back. LeBron James just came back. They've had about 3 games with Anthony Davis. They just had their 1 game with LeBron James. They had LeBron James and Anthony Davis against the Raptors and lost by 20. That's not anybody's fault but the Lakers. Nobody's fault but the Lakers that they're in that situation. I am personally a fan of the play-in tournament. I think it's a good idea. I liked it last year. I like it this year. I think there can be some tweaks to it to make it better, but I think the idea of fighting for your spot, if you're in that 7-8, I like it. I like the general idea of it. Some people say it's just extra games. Some people say it's just forcing injuries. But I think the general idea of fighting for your spot, especially if teams like 2 or 3 games behind each other. If you look at 8 and 9, the Grizzlies are 32 and 31. The Grizzlies are 32 and 31, and the Warriors are 32 and 32. With about 6-7 games left, let's just say they tie. The Grizzlies go 42 and 40. The Warriors go 42 and 40. The Grizzlies have the tiebreaker. They'll get into the playoffs. I do not think that's fair to Golden State. Maybe the Grizzlies beat them 1 more game than the Warriors beat them. I just don't think that's fair for 2 teams with the same record, the same predicament, and the Warriors don't get a crack at the playoffs. I don't think that's fair. That's why I like the play-in tournament. But I can see why it would be kind of stupid if the 10 seed is like 10 games below the 8 and the 10 seed has a chance to make the playoffs. I think it should depend on record if you get in the play-in tournament or not. Like it did last year. If you were 5 games below the 8, you could get into the play-in tournament. And I like that. Right now, the 8 and 9 are literally neck and neck. And the Spurs are they're a game behind the Warriors. So, if they all end the season with the same record, the Grizzlies would get in when there's 2 teams that maybe be better than the Grizzlies. That's why I like the play-in tournament. Because I feel like those 2 teams should get a shot at the playoffs. Also, people say, "Oh, this sucks for the 7 and 8 seeds." To not make the playoffs and be a 7-8 seed, you have to lose 2 games in a row. And if you lose 2 games in a row, if you're the 7 seed, you lose to the 8, you lose to the winner of 9 and 10, then you don't deserve the 7 seed anyway, unless you had an injury, which is an entirely different story. But an injury could happen at any time. So I don't think the play-in tournament should be hated because it causes injury. An injury could happen whenever. That's just how basketball works to me. So I'm not particularly mad about the play-in tournament. I don't know, because what I thought is when the play-in tournament, when Woj broke the news that the NBA adopted the play-in tournament full-time, people were generally happy. People loved the idea of it. And now they're mad at it because LeBron James says it's not a good idea. I don't know. I'm a bigger LeBron fan than most people. But I just don't know how much sense that makes. You guys liked it, but now LeBron doesn't like it, so you guys don't like it. That does not make sense. Anyway, talking about the actual NBA world and not just people's opinions, there was a great game, all-time classic between the Nets and Bucks. I did not watch the entire game, but I got to catch the ending, which that's really all I needed to see, really. But yeah, I caught the ending, the fouls. KD misses that shot, and that's what I want to talk about. There's people with their narratives. Kyrie before the season said, when talking about KD, that he can make that shot too, and many took it as a shot to LeBron. It was a shot to LeBron, don't get me wrong. And KD, he's missed tons of shots, and whenever he misses a game-winning shot, you see that picture brought up again. But it was a good game. The Bucks, but I think the Bucks played well. The Nets played well. The Bucks played better. Giannis was just incredible, and that's going to be a problem. The Nets can't guard anybody above 6'10". They're not going to be able to guard anybody above 6'10", which is going to be a problem. That's why that's why I don't know how good they'll fare against the Sixers with Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons even. And I don't know. I think they're better than the Bucks. I do want to see them versus the Sixers because I don't know. It's either the Sixers or the Nets that I would pick to come out the East for me. I think I'm going to lean towards Nets right now, but because the Sixers have a lot of injury issues. I don't know if they'll stay healthy going into playoffs. I hope they have. But there's also, that's what I want to talk about, James Harden. The main thing when watching that game, I was like, damn, the Nets are making this game so close. And they don't even have James Harden. They're playing without James Harden, which is a 30-point per game scorer, an MVP candidate, that they're one of the best teams in the league. They're neck and neck without him. And that was my biggest takeaway from that game. That was what I saw the most. And I'm not sure. But I have the Nets coming out of the East. It was a good win for the Bucks, but I would be able to take more out of it if James Harden was there. I'm not trying to take credit away from the Bucks. I'm just saying I can't take that much out of it because they beat a good team without their best player. You can have those arguments without arguably their best player. That's how I feel about it. Continuing talking about the Eastern Conference, we have the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls traded for Nikola Vucevic. Zach LaVine got injured, and everyone thought the Bulls. Before Zach LaVine got injured, people thought the Bulls, they were already 10. They were already in the playing game, and it looked like, all right, they're gonna make the play and probably make the playoffs. And now they're not in the play-in. They're the 11th seed. The Wizards have been... That's what I'm going to talk about next. The Wizards have been really good. No, they're actually 12. They fell below Toronto, though they're only 3 games within Washington. They're 1 game within Toronto. Zach LaVine's not even back yet. So, yeah, it's just a tough time for the Bulls. They don't even have their pick. That got traded to the Orlando Magic in the Vucevic trade. I don't think the Vucevic trade was a bad trade. I just think the season is kind of a learning point. Next season, you can sign more people. Because I think Chicago may be a little bit of an attractive free agent destination now. Maybe you can sign free agents. Maybe you can get people to come to Chicago with Vucevic and LaVine. But I don't know. I don't think right now, not looking great for Chicago. Moving on, a little bit of a rumor from Cleveland. Apparently, Cavs players are frustrated with Colin Sexton and his lack of passing the ball. As a Cavaliers fan, I've watched a bunch of games. Colin Sexton's not a 15 assist guy. He's not a Ricky Rubio. Passing is not a strong suit. It's not something he does. If he has the ball, he's going to isolate. He's most likely going to take a shot. But I think when you average 25 points per game in the 3rd year of your career on a bad team, I think you have the right to handle the ball. The Cavaliers are bad. I don't know how much longer they'll be bad, but they continue to be bad. And Colin Sexton's leading this team. His game against the Nets, many other great games for Sexton. But this team wouldn't be anywhere near where they are if it wasn't for Colin Sexton. The Cavaliers have had tons of problems with this report coming out. Colin Sexton speaking on himself. But this report coming out and the Kevin Love stuff, which is what I'm going to get into next. So Kevin Love throws the ball being seemingly frustrated in, I think, in the first quarter of a game. So he was frustrated. Maybe the team wasn't playing good. The team was down a bunch. And he just throws the ball, allowing an easy layup for the opposing team, which is unacceptable. Let's say that. I will see people defending it on Twitter. Well, he doesn't want to play for the Cavs. But the Cavs suck. What Kevin Love did is unexcusable. It's not something you can do in a game. When you sign a 5-year contract to stay with a team, you sign a contract that you're willing to be with that team to the highs and the lows. And yeah, Kevin Love signed that contract. Kevin Love knew LeBron James might leave. Kevin Love knew what he was getting themselves into. Now, halfway through that contract, he doesn't want to be there anymore, which is okay. But also, Kevin Love has to realize that he cannot be traded right now. That contract that Kevin Love has is untradeable. It can be bought out, but I think that would be even more stupid, considering that would hurt the Cavaliers cap-wise tremendously. They're not going to buy him out. They shouldn't buy him out, quite frankly. So Kevin Love has to realize that he signed this contract, he put himself in this situation, and he's got to control his temper. People are comparing it to the Kevin Porter Jr. Situation, saying he should have been treated like KPJ. KPJ had multiple outbursts and allegations with the Cavaliers that pushed them away from the Cavaliers. And he also wasn't getting on the court. We were like 3 months into the season, and Kevin Porter Jr. just started attending Cavaliers games. So it was like, okay, he may not even play this season for us. He's having a bunch of outbursts, and let's just trade him, which, sucks, because I'm still sad that the Cavaliers traded Kevin Porter Jr., but with the Cavs situation at the time, it just had to be done. Kevin Porter Jr. has been incredible for Houston. I'm very glad that he's turning his career around, seemingly. 50 points, and 50 points against the Bucks. It was great to watch. The 50 points against the team that drafted him. But yeah, it was amazing to watch. I'm so glad that he's turning his career around, because he was not in a great place. Again, 3 months into the season, he hadn't even played. He was in the G League. Would he ever get called up? And he got called up. He's been incredible, and he's turning his career around. So I'm happy for the young man. I am a little salty that he was traded from Cleveland, but if you look at the situation Cleveland was in, it was just a trade that had to happen. Okay, back talking about over the weekend, 2 major things that I want to get to and end the NBA part. As I'm recording this, the NBA just revealed the players of the week for last week, and it's Devin Booker and Jason Tatum, which actually ties in just to what I was going to talk about. So over the weekend, Jason Tatum scored 60. That was out of nowhere. The Celtics went down 32 to the Spurs. And a lot of people were counting out the Celtics, and still are counting out the Celtics, as they sit in the 7th seed right now. If the season was to end today, they would be in the play-in game, which I don't think the Celtics are that fond of. But, yes, Jason Tatum was incredible. They were down a lot to the Spurs, and Jason Tatum put the team on his back. 60 points is an incredible performance. Boston still has their problems. I don't think anyone sees Boston this year as legitimate championship contenders. Last year, they were 2 games away from the finals. They were healthy. Like, if any year they were going to bring a championship home, it was going to be last year. They were 2 games away from the finals. And then a few years before that, they were 1 game away from the finals. I don't think Boston's glory days have passed them, but I just don't know. Like, I don't know. They have a big 3, supposedly. I don't think it's a big 3. Kemba Walker has not put in nearly the production that he put in Charlotte. And frankly, he's just not worth the contract that Boston gave him to sign him. But nevertheless, big 2, big 3. I would say big 2 with good players, good role players, really good supporting cast. But that's not going to win you a championship. Like, LA have 2 great players. Boston have 2 good players. But yeah, Boston, they're good. They're the 7th seed right now. I don't know if they'll get above the 7th seed because Miami actually a game before them. And yeah, they got to get past Miami. If they want that 6th seed, then they would have to go through Milwaukee in the first round, which I do not think is something that they want. So, going up in the East, Hawks, I talked about them last time. Great job. The Knicks, they aren't as hot as they were last time I talked about them, but they are the 4th seed now. It does not look like the Knicks will be in the play-in. They would have to get on a pretty weird losing streak. They're 9-1 in their last 10. And yeah, they're looking good. I'm glad that they're still performing. But I think that's it for Eastern Conference talk. Let's get to the West. The Phoenix Suns, man. Devin Booker has been incredible. The Phoenix Suns have been great. Chris Paul really turned this franchise around. And it's just so good to see them actually be great. Shortly after I recorded the last podcast, they clinched the playoffs. Right now, they're the number 1 seed in the West. They've clinched the playoffs, the number 1 seed in the West. That's just great, man. Because Phoenix, in a position where they haven't made the playoffs in years, I think. I think it's been nearly a decade just seeing the Phoenix Suns in the playoffs. There's a clip of Steve Nash crying after losing to Lakers in the playoffs, and that's the last time they've made the playoffs. So it was just a very emotional time. I'm very happy for Suns fans. They deserve this. They haven't really had anything to smile about in years, and they're the 1 seed, and dare I say, they're contenders. This is a really good team, man, and I'm so happy for them. I believe in them. I think they're going to really be no pushover in the playoffs. I don't know what to believe, because the Lakers, you have them tied for the play-in tournament. They're not going to get above 5. If you look at the records in the games that are left, the Lakers aren't going to get above 5. So that's kind of scary. But I don't know. I'm happy for the Suns. They lead the West right now. I think I don't know. But until the Lakers get their stuff together, they're the best team in the West. Because right now, the Suns have just shown more than any other team. The Lakers have to get their stuff together. The Jazz are dealing with injuries. The Clippers, people fail to believe in. Denver are still playing great. I think Denver is a good team, but I do think losing Jamal Murray is huge for them. I know they're 9-1 since they've lost Jamal Murray, and Jokic is the MVP. But when you lose a player as productive as Jamal Murray, you don't get better. You get worse. They've replaced him with Austin Rivers. They've done pretty well. But when you lose a player of that caliber, you do not get better. You get worse. But that's going to be it for my NBA talk of the podcast. We're going to move on to NFL. And yeah, let's go. So the NFL draft, I'm not the biggest NFL fan. I won't lie to anybody. I had notifications on for the other 2 nights, but I only sat down and watched and analyzed the first night of the draft, because literally after round 3 or 4, I really don't care that much. But anyway, I watched round 1. Trevor Lawrence, great pick. I mean, the most obvious pick ever. What was weird to me is the Jazz spent 8 minutes on that pick, and I was like, this pick should take 3 seconds. It's the most obvious pick ever. I don't think any pick took as long. Any pick that wasn't traded took as long as the Jaguars pick, which was interesting to me. Anyway, move on to number 2. Just picked Zach Wilson. Again, first 2 picks were expected. They weren't really anything special, anything surprising. They're great picks, don't get me wrong, but they were just expected. Now, number 3. I was a Justin Fields guy personally. I thought after Wilson, and I think Justin Fields may be even better than Wilson. I am high on Justin Fields, but after Wilson and Lawrence, I thought Justin Fields was their best quarterback in the draft. However, 49ers went Trey Lance. Trey Lance isn't bad. I wasn't mad at that. It doesn't seem like he's going to start right away. So yeah, that's okay. Trey Lance goes 3. And then at 4, the Falcons pick Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is arguably the best all-around player in the draft. We don't know if he'll play tight end or wide receiver, which is something I'm not sure about it either. But yes, Kyle Pitts is incredible. One of the most skilled players in the draft. I think it was a great pick from the Falcons, obviously. So what was weird about the Falcons is apparently they won't have enough cap room to re-sign their rookies, so they have to trade Julio. I don't know how true that is. That's just something I've heard. I don't know how true that is. If Julio is traded, that's a big shakeup for the Falcons. And basically, I mean, the Falcons aren't a bad team. I think they could definitely be a playoff team. Their whole problem is they don't close out games. Their defense is abysmal. Their defense doesn't close out games. And that's the huge problem for the Falcons. They choke so many games. As much as people want to say it's a joke, it's a real thing. They're up in the fourth quarter, like most of the games they play, and they end up losing those games. That's unacceptable. But anyway, fine pick. And then 5 is where controversy happens. The Bengals picked Jamar Chase at 5 over Penei Sewell. I was a Penei Sewell guy. Penei Sewell. I was a Penei Sewell guy myself. I thought he was the better pick, but I wasn't mad if they picked Chase. It's like, Joe. I mean, like, people forget the first round isn't the only round to draft for your needs. You got most people, they draft for needs first, second, third, probably fourth round. Once you get past the fourth round, you're drafting best player available in your eyes. That's why teams draft a second running back in those rounds. It's like you already have a running back, but you're drafting the best players available, just hoping to find a diamond in the rough after the fourth round. But the first 4 rounds, the first round of the draft is not the only round to adjust your needs. And I think Jamar Chase is going to be a generational receiver. That man is incredible. And it's a generational receiver or an offensive lineman. We don't know if he's going to be generational. I think it's fair to say Jamar Chase is generational. And Penei Sewell, looking at he's got some iffy tape. Offensive linemen are always hit or miss, especially that early. When you can pick a surefire generational receiver, I don't know. Like I said, I was a Sewell guy. I am a Sewell guy. But I just don't think the Jamar Chase pick was that bad as people were saying. And then Miami. Miami goes at 6 and picks Jalen Waddle. I was not a fan of that pick. I thought the Bengals, alright, it was fine to pass up on Penei Sewell. I did not think Miami should have passed up on Penei Sewell. Jalen Waddle does not strike me as generational as Jamar Chase does. I think Devonta Smith is better than Jalen Waddle. Honestly, I thought Miami, especially looking at the amount of times Tua got sacked, the amount of times Ryan Fitzpatrick got sacked, I definitely think it should have went lineman. So yeah, I think that was a bad pick. Then the Lions finally get Penei Sewell to fall to them. That was great. Great for the Lions. Jared Goff's gonna have some good protection. Good there. Then the Panthers go on, don't pick a quarterback, which the next 2 teams don't pick a quarterback in situations where they could have. The Panthers don't pick a quarterback. Instead, they pick J.C. Horn. I thought that was fine, though I probably would have went Surtain over Horn, but that was fine. Broncos go pick Surtain. I 1,000% thought the Broncos were picking Justin Fields. I was surprised. I like Patrick Surtain. I just don't know if that was the right pick. I just think they should have went quarterback there. I don't know what's going to happen for the Broncos because many are saying that Teddy Bridgewater was brought there to be a mentor for Drew Lock, and I think Teddy Bridgewater should start over Drew Lock because Teddy Bridgewater is better than Drew Lock, undoubtedly. Drew Lock is holding the Broncos back. I think Teddy Bridgewater, with the right coaching staff, the right receiving core, can be a very good quarterback, like he was doing in New Orleans. I think Teddy Bridgewater will start. Maybe he'll take over at a certain amount of weeks in the season, but I think Teddy Bridgewater is the better quarterback. So I'll cover the top 10, then I'll go outside of the top 10 to specific picks I want to talk about. The Eagles trade up right in front of the Giants and take Devonta Smith. Great pick for the Eagles. I'm kind of mad about it as a Giants fan. That kind of, it doesn't make me the happiest man in the world. But it was a good pick for the Eagles. That's the guy they wanted all along. And it felt like hey, maybe we shouldn't pick him at 6. Maybe we can move down to 10 and still get him. And they were right. No, they weren't right because they moved down to 12, but they had to move up to 10 to get him, which was a great thing for them. Then the New York Giants, that was pretty good for them. They trade down because it's like, alright, we can't get the guy we wanted. We can trade down, still get a good receiver. Yeah, they trade down. Chicago gets Justin Fields, and Chicago fans are over the moon right now. They finally got their quarterback, finally got their guy, and I'm happy for them. I think Justin Fields, like I said, I think he will be the second best quarterback in the draft. The fact he fell all the way to 11th is kind of crazy. So, I think that was a great pick. And then the Patriots get Mac Jones, which is a very interesting thing to talk about because I think Mac Jones, I wasn't a fan of him. I don't think he'll be very good. But here's the thing. A quarterback that's not going to be very good under Bill Belichick's wing, being able to train under Bill Belichick, learn from Cam Newton for his entire career, for the first few years of his career, that's not going to be a bad quarterback. He's going to be better than that. What I originally thought he was, and now the team he gets drafted to, that changes what I think he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be a Tom Brady. I don't think he's going to be one of the best in the league, but I think he can be very solid for New England. And I think New England are very happy that he fell to them. So moving down a little bit, the New York Giants, my New York Giants select Kadarius Toney. I think that was a good pick. I was kind of mad at the pick at the time. I preferred Bateman, honestly, but looking at his tape, looking at some stuff, I think that was the better pick than Bateman because he's very good with his speed, and Daniel Jones isn't really a great deep ball thrower. So I mean, you can give deep ball guys, but when you have a quarterback that isn't really a deep ball guy, it's better to have speedy receivers. So I think and Kadarius Toney is extremely fast, so that makes me kind of happy about the pick. Moving down a huge bit at the end of round 2, the Buccaneers select Kyle Trask. That's the last thing I want to talk about.